The question that nobody ever asks, and the question that I most hate the answer to, is what happens if you do have a ventilator? What are your chances? And I just hope that hydroxychloroquine wins, coupled with perhaps the Z-Pack, as we call it, dependent totally on your doctors and the doctors there. Because you know the answer to that question. If you do have the ventilator, you know the answer to that question. And I hate giving the answer. So I don't want to get them there. I don't want to get them there. There's a possibility. And I say it. What do you have to lose? I'll say it again. What do you have to lose? Take it. I really think they should take it. But it's their choice. And it's their doctor's choice or the doctors in the hospital. But hydroxychloroquine, try it if you'd like. The other thing, if you have a heart condition, I understand, probably you stay away from the Z-Pack. But that's an antibiotic. It can clean out the lungs. The lungs are a point of attack for this horrible virus. But when you have a ventilator, don't ask the answer because I hate it. If you have it and it's working beautifully, I don't like the answer because it's not a very high percentage. So I want to keep them out of ventilators. I want to keep them, if this drug works, it will be not a game changer because that's not a nice enough term. It will be wonderful. It'll be so beautiful. It'll be a gift from heaven if it works.
Let's talk about the hospitalization rates for folks with coronavirus. So what percentage of folks with coronavirus end up going to the hospital? What percentage of those people end up having to go to an ICU? What percentage of the ICU people end up on a ventilator, or are those coincident? And what percentage of people on ventilators actually end up surviving?
Ooh, okay. How long we got? It's a lot of the answer to that then depends on the population of patients, because we know that older people and people with other diseases before they got sick with coronavirus do worse. So, for example, the very high mortality rates and ICU rates in Italy are partly related to the fact that it was an older population. But if you take all comers, about 80% of people who get the virus do just fine. In fact, some of them we now know are asymptomatic through the entire time, but most of them will have a flu-like illness, recover fully, and be fine. About 20% of people will get sick enough, and a decent percentage of them, 15 to 20% of all comers, will need to go to the hospital. Of those, somewhere around a quarter to a third, again, depending on the overall health of the population, might need to go to an intensive care unit. Not everybody who goes to an ICU needs to be on a mechanical ventilator, needs to be intubated and ventilated, but if you can't breathe without it, you do. And then the overall death rate nationally in the U.S. is around 1% of all people that get the illness. If you are unfortunate enough to need to go on a mechanical ventilator in the ICU, the studies vary, but they on the low side, the mortality rate is 50%. On the high side, some of the early studies from China showed a mortality rate closer to 90%. So not everybody who gets sick enough to be on a ventilator dies, but it's a bad thing, and the outcomes are at best 50-50.
Facts don't care about your feelings, and it's a fact that The Ben Shapiro Show is the largest conservative podcast in the nation. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and stay up to date on all of our content.